Please like and subscribe to this channel and press the bell icon to get new video updates.
Now for my possibly presumptuous title, The Future of Car Audio. So as mentioned, I work for Garmin. This is a team of people at our Olathe location. Olathe, Kansas is a suburb of Kansas City. That's where I'm located. That's where Garmin's headquarters is located. And then this is a combination of our tuner team, which work on the tuners for the car radios, as well as the audio team. I'm a member of the audio team, and then members of the HMI, which is the human-machine interface team. So that's like the buttons you press on the screen, but not just that, it's also human-machine interface includes like voice commands, as an example, for the car. And there's 3 vehicles there that we worked on. The Ford F-150 is just navigation, so that's not actually interesting probably to this room. The motorcycle is a BMW motorcycle, and then the minivan on the right is a Mercedes minivan where we did the entire head unit. It has, one thing that might be interesting about that is it has 6 tuners in the head unit for the radio. So you have the tuner where you're listening to the current program, but then you have tuners that are scanning in the background to build a list of stations. There's additional tuners in the background looking for alerts or announcements that might be on other stations that might pertain to you. For example, something about traffic. So Garmin does a lot of things, and I think most of the time when I've said I am at Garmin here, people are like, oh, are you doing navigation or maps? This is different divisions that we serve, and I'll go through a couple of these just to give some context for where the automotive fits in that. But there's automotive, aviation. Most of the fitness and outdoor stuff is watches. So like I have a watch that has topo maps on it and plays music and things like that. In fact, so like in the smartwatch category, does anybody think they might know who the #1 market share would be for premium smartwatches is those that cost more than $500. Apple is a good guess because Apple dominates the premium market in almost every market they serve, but Garmin is actually #1 in that market share category and #3 by revenue in smartwatches. So Garmin started off in aviation, still do a lot of aviation. This is one of the newer high-profile features that's in this image, which is the auto land feature. So if the zombie apocalypse happens, the pilots are incapacitated, you can press a button and the plane will be able to land itself. The marine category is huge. We do all of these things here, everything from the sensors, there's sonar, radars, cameras. The most interesting thing for us would be that Garmin also does the entertainment systems, including manufacturing loudspeakers. That fusion system is done at our facility that's in New Zealand. The thing on the left has nothing to do with automotive stuff, but it's really cool. It creates a 3D image of what's under the water. So you can look down and get a really good view of what's down there. And it's completely changed sport fishing, as an example. And so like all of the people that have won the competitions in the last several years have all really relied on the Garmin stuff. That created kind of a controversy at first. Now everybody uses it. So when we talk about Garmin and automotive stuff, what most people think of is what we see on the right side of the screen here. This is what we call a PND, or a portable navigation device. It's something that you add on to your vehicle if you want maps and your car doesn't have maps. And a lot of people maybe use cell phones these days, but in cases where you have something like an RV or a big semi, this can actually route you in ways where it knows the length of the vehicle, it knows what your limitations are, and can give you better directions that are more useful. And we also, the headset that this guy's wearing is also manufactured by us, and we have a team that's designing the headsets and the speakers and transducers in that. The Automotive OEM is actually a different business segment than that portable navigation device. And so the OEM, we're actually installing the equipment at the factory into the vehicles. And so this is outdated. There's a few notable missing icons here, including the product that I've been working on for the last 2 years, which is for the BMW line. But it gives you an idea that we've worked with quite a few manufacturers. In every case, it's different. Some cases it's just providing navigation. In some cases we're providing the audio system and the entertainment system. In some cases we're providing the entire cluster, so it's not just the head unit for the stereo, but it's also the dashboard, the safety systems, and the like the camera systems for the backup cameras and everything. Here's a few images from Ford and then also from Toyota at the bottom. The Toyotas, I believe that this is only for the Asian market. In this picture at the bottom, it's a heads-up display, so it's like you're looking out the window and the stuff's being projected up above onto the windshield. This was the minivan that I showed in the opening picture there. This is the Mercedes. It's the Vito in Europe. It's the Metris here. It's the lesser-known little sibling to the Sprinter vans. In this picture, it's got the camper on it. Usually they don't have that, but I like the picture. So I chose this one. So this is the cockpit, and the head unit, which is in the center console there, is the piece that we were responsible for this vehicle. And it does all the things that you would expect it to do there. It has navigation, it has the tuners for FM and AM, Bluetooth connectivity, hands-free phone connectivity. And then here are a few screenshots from our demo that we had at CES this past January that show the integrated cluster, the integrated cabin. Everything basically comes together, so there's a seamless experience from the top. The top ones are actually like the dash cluster that would go up by your steering wheel, and then the screens you see on the lower line, that is from what we call the center stack, which is the thing that would come down in the console in between the seats. So you can see that by moving to screens, which is where all of the manufacturers are going now, we can do things like put the maps and the navigation in the same place where your speedometer is, so you're not having to distractedly look around your cabin trying to see where you're supposed to be going, and then who knows what bad things might happen. A lot of what I'll talk about today is going to be regarding BMW. So in most of the cases with the automakers, we've worked on one vehicle or a few vehicles or one component of the vehicle, but in the case of BMW, we kind of upset the status quo and stole a contract from Harman and became the tier one provider for the systems that are in all of BMW's lines, from Minis through BMWs to Rolls Royces for the next couple of years. So this is a picture from the inside of the new 7 Series. It's an electric 7 Series car. And so this is a collaborative project. So Garmin didn't do all the pieces, but I'm going to show a couple of videos here. It'll help give you a better sense of what these new systems are like. So in both of these cases, it's going to be showing the new 7 Series. The new 7 Series, we started production in August. In theory, you should be able to get these vehicles soon. The rear seat entertainment part is the part of the system that I spent most of my time on the last 2 years doing audio. And so they mentioned there's the rumbles in the seats, but also there's full surround sound in the car. So you have 7.1 surround.
Jumping in the back of this car. Wow, look at all this total obscurity.
Enjoy your BMW theater experience.
Thank you so much. Look, there's even screens here on the side of the door.
Welcome to the future of in-car entertainment, brought to you by BMW. Powered by Bowers & Wilkins' Diamond Surround Sound System for an unparalleled 4D audio experience. Immerse yourself in the 31-inch, ultra-wide, 8K resolution BMW theater screen. With Amazon Fire TV built in, you can enjoy a wide variety of content. Stream videos, listen to music.
It's literally shaking the seats.
Yeah. There's one more video here, and so it covers some of the same territory as that one, but there's other things where you're going to be able to see what the front is like in here as well.
What you really want to be back here for is when you delve into your little touchpad and enter theatre mode. And at this point, the blinds close, a Hans Zimmer soundtrack plays, and you get a 31-inch screen, which I am going to ask to shut up now. Let's just turn you down. Look at this. A ultra-wide screen 8K definition with 5G internet connectivity and Amazon Fire TV built in. Forget playing I Spy. This is the ultimate in rear seat entertainment. Now I'm operating everything back here by this smartphone that seems to have somehow melted itself into the door. You can do things like put the rear blind down. So you can pretty much lie down while being driven along. Obviously you'll have a chauffeur, and enjoying whatever's on the screen. I mean, it's possible to completely forget that you're still in a car here, a road legal car amongst the traffic. This is, well, it's the full Netflix and chill on your own experience.
You see in these super over-the-top extravagant cars now is what we can see, you know, maybe in 5 or 10 years on more approachable cars. And also, I think part of what I wanted to highlight, especially in this second video, is this immersive experience. And so we're really trying, there's this attempt to try and immerse you in a thing. So it's not just radio coming out of your one speaker in the middle of the car, or then stereo. It just wants to wrap you in the entire experience. And so we've gone beyond radio to something where there's sound and there's light and there's video, and it's all tied together. There was a question about, is the sound isolated from the back seat when you're watching a movie back there, so it doesn't distract the driver? You can connect headsets to the system in the back. So it can be going out to the entire cabin for the surround, or it can go to headphones. And your headphones could be either wired headphones, or you could pair a couple of Bluetooth headsets to it. That's actually one of the more complicated things about the whole project. It doesn't sound complicated on the surface to connect two headsets, but actually it can be really difficult. That was the rear seat entertainment that we were just looking at. So this is the head unit, what we might think of in the more traditional space of where the stereo system would be. And so the head unit, this is a Mini, and the Minis are really cool. These screens showed up in our office, I don't know, 18 months ago or so, these round screens like what you see in the center there. You know, we have the tuner, we have FM, we have AM. DAB is a European thing, probably no one cares about here. But we have other things that the head units are doing. They're trying to do Apple's CarPlay or Android Auto, so that you can use your phone with it. USB media, navigation, phone calls, gongs, all these things are all audio sources. This is all part of the experience of the sound in the car. So gongs also, that's the word we use for any sort of alerts that your car is giving you. This is just a picture from the factory floor in Olathe. Building 5 is where we do our manufacturing for the BMW project. In North America, we also have, there's a factory in Poland that's serving the European market, and we have factories in China and Taiwan for serving the Asian markets. And the design's actually a little bit different depending on the market. So, like for the China market, we can't export Amazon. So one of the things in the head units, and the reason I got to the head units is so we can talk about the tuners. I think the tuners are probably the thing that a lot of people here are interested in. So what is a tuner? Most of us probably know the tuner is the part that's going to select what we're hearing from a broadcast tower somewhere. But actually the tuners are getting more complicated than that. Your general basic tuner features, you're going to step to a new frequency. In North America, you're going to step by 200 kilohertz. You can seek, meaning like go through all the stations until you find one that has a quote-unquote good enough signal, however you manage that, where you can hit the scan, you know, and it's going to repeatedly seek. Usually what we do now is we do a software seek, so that you have a background tuner that knows it's been scanning in the background all the time, and then you keep a directory of what are the good enough stations, and you can tune to that directly when you hit the button. It just jumps instantly in cars now. It doesn't, if anybody remembers from cars 30 years ago, if you hit a scan button, it was going to go take its time listening to each station long enough before it knew if it was a quote-unquote good enough signal. And then we have band-specific features for AM and FM. AM, there's really, nobody wants to put any effort into doing anything with AM because things aren't widely implemented, they're not standardized, or if they are standardized, it's not something that's widely implemented, so why put any effort into it? And then for FM, we talked a little bit about how you can get stuff, metadata. Prior to the introduction of HD, we have RDS or RBDS, so like RBDS is the European version, they're kind of the same with a few differences. The thing we often see is there's this program service name. It's supposed to be 8 characters, and sometimes you see on your car it might have like scrolling text or something. It's not supposed to do that. That's it's supposed to be static, but it's misused a lot, and there's no one to enforce the rules. You have a program type like rock or whatever, so that's useful when we build that directory with the background tuner that I mentioned in the last slide. You could build a directory of just the rock stations, for example, and then you could skip over all the classical stations or the talk radio. There's additional fields there that we can do. We have FM-HD. Hybrid digital allows multicast. So this is the thing Ed was talking about yesterday, where you can have programming, additional programming. You can get richer metadata, so you can get album art or station logos. It does require third-party certification, royalty payments, so it makes it more expensive. So you're not going to maybe get an HD tuner in your cheapest cars, but most cars nowadays are shipping with these radios because the customers are starting to expect it. And so then, what does the future look like with regards to tuners? Where are the efforts going? So we have 2 situations here. One is multi-zone tuner. So we refer to zones in the cabin as being roughly like the 4 seats in the car. So if you want to be able to have different programming for the different seats, which you can do with headphones, for example, or you could maybe try to do with some new technology that doesn't exist yet, that doesn't require headphones, then how would you utilize the radio system to serve different programming or somehow different artwork or whatever from the stations to the different zones in the car? So it's experimental, but another area with a lot of work going into it, and which will start showing up in cars. I think Audi maybe is going to have some hybrid radio next year. Is this hybrid radio? What hybrid radio is doing is it's combining a traditional radio broadcast with an IP stream that you can get like over 5G. And the cars, I mean, like the BMW, the back screen, for example, has its own 5G connection. The cars are getting 5G connections, and we can combine those, and then we can get even richer information than we got with HD. And also we can do things like say, hey, I have, and this is what the IP service following is in that bullet point. Hey, I am listening to the Buffalo Bills game, and I'm driving from Rochester to Albany. Well, eventually I'm going to go out of range of whatever station I'm listening to. Where's the nearest station? And have it automatically switch stations. It could do it in the background, maybe without you even knowing that it was changing stations, so that you can just continuously listen to the same football game all the way to Albany. Maybe you go out of range of of what your programming is completely. I mean, if you drive maybe you're driving from Buffalo to Cleveland, and in Cleveland they don't like the Bills, so so you can't get a broadcast there. So what you can do is use the 5G connection, then in the background it can switch to a stream of the game and get you the game that way. It's a really tricky problem. I'm giving the like smooth surface level of it, but making it work so that you have, because there's different latencies and delays at different stations. You want to crossfade it, make it smooth. If you have to catch up, you're going to need to do some like time stretching. It's tricky to get it all right, but it is coming, and it's coming soon. So what is your car, and I put in quotes, radio doing? I had a little list earlier in the head unit, but I thought I'd give you an idea of what the matrix of things going on is. We have multiple processors in there trying to take care of all this stuff. So for audio inputs, beamforming microphones, what that is we'll have multiple microphones in the microphone capsule, or maybe even microphones placed around the cabin, and then depending on how the sound is coming into those microphones, you can actually focus in on one location or another based on the delay. So you can kind of point the microphone to whoever's talking, for example, in the microphone during a phone call. ECNR, I tried not to use acronyms, but ECNR is echo cancellation and noise reduction. Imagine you're listening to a phone call and you don't want that person's voice that's playing on your speakers to go back into your microphone. There's real-time analysis stuff going on. This is, there's some experiments going on with microphones outside of the cabin, but then you have weather and problems with them getting dirty. So using the microphones inside the cabin, there's a number of vehicles coming up in the next couple of years that use those microphones to figure out if there's emergency vehicles coming and what direction are they coming from. So what it can do with that is it can light up your dashboard, especially if the dashboard's a screen. It can light up your dashboard and say there's an emergency vehicle coming. And it can probably figure out what direction it's coming from before you can. There's some safety stuff that we can do with that. Wake up words is like you say, hopefully I don't ruin anyone's phone here, but like you say, hey Siri or hey Alexa, and then it wakes up the system so that you can talk. And then we have all the sources. We've talked about some of these sources previously, but the audio sources, we have tuners. There's Alexa built into a number of cars. The BMW we just looked at, but also like the Jeep Wagoneer now has an Alexa built into it. We have physical media, we have Bluetooth, CarPlay we already talked about a little bit. And CarPlay, I also mentioned, a lot of people don't really understand what's going on with CarPlay. There's a couple things I can say about that, actually. One is the way it currently works is you need to have a wired connection. You have to plug your phone in for it to work. And the reason for that is that it's playing Bluetooth, or playing audio over Bluetooth. However, it doesn't have enough bandwidth over Bluetooth to deliver the images for the screen. So basically, it's using the cable as a display port. And so the next generation of CarPlay, which uses Wi-Fi instead of Bluetooth, is able to have enough bandwidth and you won't need a wire anymore. Another thing that's coming, Apple's announced CarPlay 2. I'm not sure what manufacturers are going to adopt that, but it allows CarPlay to take over the whole dashboard in these vehicles where the whole dashboard is a screen. Phone calls, we know gongs, we talked about gongs a little bit. Navigation, like talking to you. We have active noise cancellation is another audio, it's an audio source, it's not one that you hear, but the idea here is that you can cancel out the sound coming from the road noise and everything. So you can make the cabin quieter by playing basically a signal, an audio signal that's in inverted phase from what's coming in from outside. And so we're doing work on that. Electric vehicle sound generation is a hot topic. So we're synthesizing sounds for vehicles, because if the vehicle is silent, then it's also dangerous. It can sneak up on people. And there's some question about, what should an electric vehicle sound like? Should it sound like a symphony orchestra is coming at you, or should it sound like a noisy motor? Another audio source is in-cabin communication. I have a minivan to drive around my 4 kids. When we're going 70 miles an hour down the highway, it's hard to hear who's talking in the back, and it's hard for them to hear me. So there's multiple manufacturers now putting in systems which just pick up, there's microphones all throughout the car and speakers, so you just speak and it's amplified in the front if you're speaking in the back, and vice versa. BMW case, we have an HDMI port, for example, on the screen, so that when you're sitting in the back seat and you need to take a business meeting, you can plug in your Microsoft Teams or Slack or whatever you use. And then apps and gaming are a really big thing too, for entertainment, for kids in the back seat or grown-ups, I guess, too. Included in the apps, there's a number of ways that could go, including karaoke. So karaoke, there's lots of manufacturers asking for karaoke right now. Also, we're starting to build in video cameras into the rearview mirror, because people want to be able to take selfies and take videos that they post to TikTok. I guess that's over here in my other column here on the destinations, or sinks as we call them. We go to the cabin speakers. We can go external to the car. So the electric vehicle generation, we need to be able to send that sound outside of the car in order for people to hear that your electric car is coming. But entertainment also, there's use cases for having that played outside of the car. Headphones are really complicated. You wouldn't think so, but they are. For example, if you have multiple people in the car watching some movie, and one of them is plugged in with a wire and one of them has Bluetooth, and the Bluetooth has 270 milliseconds of latency. You have to get that all synced up for everybody. And if you have multiple Bluetooth headsets, then that's a whole other headache. Also, going to headphones isn't always as simple as just sending the left channel and the right channel. You may want to make it sound more three-dimensional. And so there are technologies, some of which we're licensing, some of which we're developing still, to make it sound more like you're in a 3D space in the headphones. Black box recorders, apps already said. Let's imagine you're in the Walmart parking lot and you're starting to back up and your car starts beeping at you. What do? Hopefully stop and figure it out. But it takes a minute to figure out what's going on. And so now that we have spatial sound in the cars, we have full surround systems, one thing that manufacturers are starting to ask about is having spatial alerts. So that would mean, well, if someone's coming towards you in their grocery cart from the rear right part of the vehicle, that's where the sound alert should come from in your car. It shouldn't just like beep at you as any other beep. Or if there's a danger, you're getting ready to swerve into a car on the left side, the alert can come from the left side of the car rather than just beeping at you and you're like, I don't know, is somebody going to hit me from the right side or the left side? You have to panic on the road. So that's one thing. And then I mentioned multi-zone tuners earlier. So multi-zone audio is something that we're also getting lots of requests about, and it seems a little bit like unicorns and rainbows, but the idea is that you could everybody in the car could sit, and maybe like these two people are listening to the same programming. They're both listening to a podcast, and then this person's listening to the movie that's on the screen, and then the other person's not listening to anything at all. And they could do that all without headphones. I'm not sure that the people asking for this really understand the challenge of the problem. They think, oh, we'll just put headphones, we'll put little speakers in the headrests. But it's not that simple, obviously. You have to cancel out a lot of sound. To do something like that, to even think about it, would take a lot of loudspeakers and transducers. And they'll probably balk at that. Auto manufacturers don't like lots of speakers because they weigh a lot. And auto manufacturers are very sensitive about adding weight to vehicles. That said, I'll have some exceptions to that. So I'm going to spend the last few minutes talking about spatial audio. Maybe we have the dual themes, the future of car radio and the evolution of audio. And so that a lot of this talk really is about the evolution of audio. These are some historical examples. All three of these examples are problematic. Everybody recognizes the mono example on the left, I hope. And then on the right, there's a quadraphonic 8-track there. In the middle is stereo. And so one of the problems with stereo is that there's a sweet spot. So when we design a car, not necessarily design, but when we tune the cars before they go out, they're tuned to make the sound the best in the driver's seat. The person sitting in the driver's seat is probably the person that's paying the money. So it needs to sound the best for them. But that means that in order to sound good in that position, delays have to be added to the speakers and the balance of the volume. And so you can change the balance of the volume later if you don't like it. But the delays are all fixed at the factory. It's going to sound the best in one particular spot in your car. And it's probably the driver's seat. And then I've mentioned this multiple times. We really want to create immersive experiences in the car. That's what customers are expecting now. They want the car to be like a theater, and that some people are abhorred by that idea, but that is definitely the direction we're going. And so reverberation is back. not because we have mono, but just to help create a more spacious feel in the cars. And so there's an example here that I gave, which is Harman has a virtual venues feature. They're an OEM that works with lots of manufacturers that are demanding this. And this image here is part of their marketing propaganda, where they're saying, you know, we want you to be able to enjoy concerts in your car. I've already mentioned 5.1 and 7.1 surround. I have a project I'm working on right now for one of the manufacturers, which is 5.1.4 surround. So what that is it's 5.1, but then you have 4 additional channels that are elevation or height channels. So if you have all those channels, but your original content is only stereo, then what are you going to do with your original content? You just play it out the speakers, it doesn't actually sound very good. So we have algorithms to try and make it sound good on all those channels. So the simplest one would be like in 5.1, you can just mix together the left and the right to get the center channel. And then the same thing with the bass. And then for the, if you're going to do that, then maybe for the left rear and the right rear, you could take the signals, attenuate them some, and put them 90 degrees out of phase to make it sound like there's a little more space to it. But it's not ideal to do that, and so we have a number of different mechanisms that are either already coming or on their way for delivering actual spatial audio that's encoded to be delivered over a system like this. And then there's Sony 360 and Dolby Atmos are 2 standards that are competing, as usual. Dolby Atmos currently has a lot more content available. Okay, so here's a quick comparison of where you can get spatial content. And so Apple Music has really been promoting this lately. They're using Dolby Atmos. Amazon and Tidal have support both, and Deezer, which is kind of like a newer streaming service, just supports the Sony 360. Spotify, I have no idea what they're doing. Object-based spatial audio, the idea of this is that the sounds, instead of just having like a sound recorded for your left ear and a sound recorded for your right ear, instead you have maybe up to like 128 channels of audio, and they represent the sources, and then there's information on how to position those sources around you. Then when it comes to your vehicle, or I mean your home as well, what can happen is it gets decoded to wherever your speakers happen to be located in the environment. And so the benefit of that is it's not tied to a particular speaker configuration. If I just skip a few bullet points here down to the 4th point, you know, one of the results of this is you can basically tune sweet spots for multiple listeners instead of it just being for one person, or you can widen the sweet spot. The non-traditional speaker configurations is important because in the car, who knows where the speakers are going to be? If they're by your feet in the back seat, then you know that. What are you going to do with that speaker? If you're just trying to listen to left-right stereo, it's not going to sound very good. And then the last bullet point I already mentioned, Dolby Atmos definitely seems to be taking the lead in market share here. And these are also on the way. There's currently, I only listed 3. I think there's a 4th vehicle now that just announced that they're going to support Dolby Atmos. It's also a Chinese maker. So the Neo at the bottom here has 23 speakers in the car. That's a Chinese market vehicle, which is why probably none of you have heard it. And then the other 2 are both for the American market. Lucid is a relatively new upstart. I just saw, for the first time, I saw one in Kansas City last week. They have 21 loudspeakers in them, and this Mercedes Maybach, that's got 31 speakers in it. Some of this technology, I think, is going to make it down to pedestrian cars, but some of this technology, it's hard to see how that would happen if you have to have that many loudspeakers, for example, without some sort of significant invention. I decided to end my talk with a picture of the new, meaning the future then, car radio. I took that picture at the Wireless Museum the other night.
Please like and subscribe to this channel and press the bell icon to get new video updates.